Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your co-hosts, TV, aka TV on Basketball, alongside my co-host, Jay, aka The Knockdown. Jay, how's it going, my guy?
TV, I don't know if people listened to the last episode, but we told them that the next time we record that the finals might be over, and here we are.
Yeah, it was either going to be, we jumped the gun. We said maybe it was going to be a Celtics sweep. It wasn't a Celtics sweep, but it might as well have been a Celtics sweep at this point. But yeah, we have to talk about the finals. The NBA season finally concluded after a long 82 games, plus how many months of the finals, of the playoffs. We finally reached the end. We're going to talk a lot about the final series, of course. We're going to talk about the season as a whole. There's a lot to talk about in this episode, and of course we're gonna have some off-season news as well in this episode, so you're gonna be on the lookout for that. It's gonna be a really action-packed episode, and I'm glad that you guys are here to join us to watch it. But before we get into it, we do have to plug our socials. Remember to follow our individual socials at TV on Basketball, at The Routine Jumper. Those things can be found in the description down below. In terms of the TikTok and Instagram for the best daily NBA content, find us at Hit Your Free Throws. We're gonna have a lot of NBA draft content, a lot of clips. If you think that we've been posting the previews of the finals, if you think that we've been posting a lot during these NBA playoffs, wait till the late of the draft. We have a bunch of stuff planned for that, so be on the lookout for that.
We got time this summer, TV. We got time this summer.
We got time, man. We're standing on business, and we're gonna be locking into this one. So be on the lookout for that. And when we talk about daily NBA content, we mean daily NBA content. So be on the lookout for that. In terms of the YouTube, remember to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. And if you're listening to the Hit Your Free Throws podcast on any of the podcast networks, Spotify or Apple, leave a review, subscribe, all that good stuff. We really appreciate all your guys' support. Jay, are you ready to talk about this NBA Finals?
Time to wrap the season up, TV.
Let's wrap it up because we have crowned the 2024 NBA champions. It is the Boston Celtics hanging up their 18th banner, the most of any NBA team in the league right now at number 18, finally breaking that tie between them and the Los Angeles Lakers. And now they have the most titles all time in NBA history as they defeat the Dallas Mavericks 4-1. Jay, the last time we spoke about this series, it was 2-0, and we thought that the Dallas Mavericks had to make a lot of changes. They looked outmatched in this one, and the Celtics took care of business, and they did it in front of their home fans. Jay, how are your thoughts on the end of the series?
So I think the most interesting thing about the Celtics in this series was just the mere fact that I think everything that's gotten them to this point was on full display throughout this series to get them eventually to hoisting the Larry O'Brien, right? Shooting the three ball at one of the highest clips in NBA history got them to where they are. Tenacious defense across the wings with Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford being able to hold up on the perimeter as well. Huge, and it's been a big part of what's been able to get him throughout this season. Kristaps Porzingis didn't play heavy minutes in this series, obviously, but he was able to show up in Game 5 and just give them the presence of a stretch 5. That's something that's made them dangerous all season long. Everything foundationally that made the Celtics as good as they were to be, a 50-plus win team this year, it all to being able to win this series their way. They won this series. They won this finals based off the way they built themselves to be optimized. This wasn't 3-point shooting luck. This wasn't, you just ran into the right matchup. Remember, this was a team in the Dallas Mavericks that was one of the hottest teams going into the postseason after the trade deadline. And we were having conversations about whether or not they were a dark horse title team. And up until the finals happened, all of those things were playing out pretty damn good. The difference is that the Celtics philosophy that's gotten them this far also has naturally been the Achilles heel of the Dallas Mavericks. Something that's not really realized is the 5-out play style that the Clippers used to kill Dallas with. All that is for the Celtics is them on steroids.
Exactly.
So I think the most interesting part about this finals, when you look at it from the Celtics perspective, obviously we'll get into all the narratives of them building this team and everything in a little bit. But overall, the Celtics did this in a way that matches the philosophy they built their team with this summer, and with the belief that their system, their internal development with guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who for years everybody kept saying, do the two stars need to break up? Do these two guys work good next to each other? They kept pushing and pushing beyond all the BS in the background. Here we are.
I mean, it's almost as if having two top 20 guys on your roster is good to keep. You know, it's probably best not to like break up two top 20 guys on your roster. But yeah, you said perfectly. The biggest message, Jason Tatum has talked about this, Joe Mazzulla has talked about this all season long, is trusting the work that they put in and trusting their game plan. We talked about how the Boston Celtics, especially in previous episodes, that no matter what happens, win or loss, they are sticking to that game plan and they're going to die on that hill. Yeah. And that is what basically ended the Dallas Mavericks season, because what the Boston Celtics, like what they did so elite in terms of moving the ball, playing that 5-out sort of offense, attacking the rim and then making, 2 or 3 more passes around the perimeter. But Dallas couldn't handle that. We know that the Dallas Mavericks defense is predicated on those two bigs. What happens when those two bigs are brought out to the paint? That's what the Boston Celtics tried to exploit. What happens with the Dallas Mavericks have to go into their bench and the Boston Celtics still have 2 or 3 of their starters in? They can't handle that. The defense that the Boston Celtics showed throughout this entire series, even in Game 5, where they just continually forced Dallas turnovers. That was been their game plan from day one. The reason they were a 64-win team, the reason why they built this, they made this ideal roster, adding players like Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis to help fit Joe Mazzulla's vision. All these moves were very intricate. They forced them into this one game plan that they want to play all season long. It provided regular season success. It provided postseason success. They only lost 3 games in this whole entire postseason. Ultimately, they ended up being NBA champions. They are one of the most talented groups that I've seen in a while. In my opinion, I would love to hear yours. I think this is the most talented team to win the finals since the KD Warriors. In that aspect. So everything that the Boston Celtics have been leading up to, this is hasn't been just a one-season journey. This started all the way back when they started building that core by drafting Jaylen Brown at number 4, by drafting Jason Tatum at number 3. This 7-year journey, starting from then up until now, it was all worth it. And they stuck to it. Started off with Danny Ainge building this team and then transitioning over to Brad Stevens. All of these moves were super intricate to get where they are right now. And not only did they win the championship, they did it by making a statement and absolutely putting the clamps on the hottest team in the West, in the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to your question about, the most talented team since that KD Warriors team, I mean, I think you make a really strong point. Jason Tatum, multi-time All-Star. Jaylen Brown, multi-time All-Star. Jrue Holiday, multi-time All-Star. Al Horford, multi-time All-Star. Kristaps Porzingis made an All-Star game, correct?
Yeah.
And Derek White was talking his way into an All-Star game this year.
They're super talented, and they work perfectly together.
And I think the craziest thing about it when you kind of put that in perspective is there are maybe only 2 of those guys that you really view as all-star caliber talents. At this point in their career, correct. Because obviously Al Horford is, first of all, dusting off Al Horford, insane. Shout out to Brad Stevens for bringing him back from Oklahoma City, though, a couple of years back.
Yeah.
And bringing back the Master Splinter Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles meme in the process.
Yeah.
But I think that it's so huge to think about the fact that Al Horford still has been able to guard so well on a perimeter and be such a strong rim protector for a Celtics team this up in age. I also think that Jrue Holiday being this linchpin defensively in the backcourt really just gave them a completely different dynamic this year that I think we saw from Derek White last year, but they doubled down on it by getting a guy like Jrue Holiday who basically does a lot of the things Derek White does, just almost a little bit more tenaciously. So then when you put them both together,
Yeah.
Good luck. You know what I mean?
We said before the series, like, what is the response to that backcourt? And to be honest, Kyrie had no response. At least in Boston, he had no response.
No, perfect point. We definitely mentioned before the series started that like there were 8 million different, Rubik's Cube combinations you could put together of like how they planned on guarding Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, and we saw everything. I mean, Luka Doncic got to a point where, or let me rephrase it as saying the Boston Celtics got to a point where they even felt comfortable with Al Horford in one-on-one switches with Luka Doncic. Mind you, I had mentioned this earlier on in the series before the series had started that Luka Doncic was just coming off of cooking Rudy Gobert in one-on-one. Then the Celtics get into a scenario where they're able to put Al Horford in one-on-one scenarios, and he held up better. So now, granted, supporting cast means a lot in terms of being able to like have that kind of that background help and things of that nature, where Al Horford can be a lot more comfortable, right? But the mere fact that they're able to lean on things like that, it changed Boston's way of being able to guard up against the Dallas Mavericks in comparison to a Minnesota Timberwolves team who kind of relied on just like sheer force to guard up against Dallas, as opposed to Boston, where the intricacies of their rosters build made it where they were able to throw a bunch of different looks at Dallas while still being physical.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think the biggest thing when you look at this team, going back to your whole comment about the talent, to be that talented, to have that many diverse play styles on offense and defense, and cherry on top, as you mentioned before, to have 2 top 20 players actively as your 2 spearheads, the question could be asked, how could you not lose? Right?
Yeah.
Like what's the I mean, how could you not win, I guess is the rephrasing of it, right? It's like, how could you not win? But I think the selflessness of that many guys being in this position is the part that fully optimizes these teams, these kind of teams, because although they're as talented as they are, although they are as switchable as they are, as despite the fact that each of these guys bring a different skill set, buy-in matters more than any of this stuff.
Yes.
And after years of building up this squad, you throw in 2 more names to the hat with Drew Holiday and Kristaps. Buy-in was going to be the key factor, and it seemed like even through all of the sky is falling comments whenever the Boston Celtics would lose because they barely lost, right? All the stuff with Kristaps Porzingis throughout the postseason of like, maybe the Boston Celtics can get had if Kristaps doesn't play. All this background noise, it didn't matter because everybody was bought into what their role was, despite all the outside noise.
Yeah, 100%. And look, when it comes to the Boston Celtics team, it was not like, years before they, for the last couple of years, they weren't talented. People thought the teams that they had probably in the last, 2 to 3 years could have possibly won a title. And that includes guys like, Grant Williams, Robert Williams, Marcus Smart. They had really good teams prior to this. There's a reason why they made, 4 or 5 conference finals since Jason Tatum has been in the league. A reason why they're always, near the top of the East every single year. Because they have really good lineups. And they had to give away, they had to trade away some of their most beloved players in their franchise of recent memory in terms of Marcus Smart and Robert Williams and all that as sacrifices in order to fully optimize the team, as you said, to make sure that they had the perfect guys to buy into the system that Joe Mazzulla has in place and to create this run, which, and many years before, this is why a lot of people were kind of even still down to Celtics, because we've seen them in other situations where it feels like they should win, but they never are able to get over the hump. They finally have the guys to buy in. They have guys that are able to start on most teams. Like we talked about how they had the perfect starting 6 in the entire NBA. All those moves, all those failures that they had leading up to this year, build up this team and what they need to do in order to get to the championship, and they were able to do it this year.
Yeah, I mean, my last real thoughts on Boston is just, man, a lot of people are going to look back to their road and question it. And don't get me wrong, it has its foibles. I definitely believe that when you talk about learning something about an NBA champion after a championship run, this might be the most uninformed I am about an NBA champion, right? How much more dominant could this team have been with Kristaps Porzingis? Well, damn it, they only lost 3 games, so how much more could we ask from them
Yeah.
if they had Kristaps Porzingis, right? But how much more dangerous could they have been with a Kristaps Porzingis? Many in the comment section of our TikToks mentioned, but what if they had ran into the Milwaukee Bucks with Dame and Giannis? I wonder how they would guard Dame and Giannis inside out. But also, Dame and Giannis pick and roll wasn't the most lethal thing this year.
Yeah.
So, yes, I would have loved to see it, but I'm not sure with what their continuity issues were, how dangerous they would have been to Boston. How scary would a fully optimized New York Knicks team with OG Anunoby, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo? Shoot, maybe they had Julius Randle. Let's throw Julius Randle and say, what if he's healthy? Yes, they have a lot of defensive capability, but is that team shooting with Boston? I don't know.
No.
But we would have to see, right? So let's go back to even earlier. If the Miami Heat are able to make it, Jimmy Butler, different demon in the postseason. What if he's healthy? The Miami Heat haven't been good all season, but how many times have we said that before they get into the playoffs?
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, there's a lot of inferences I can make about some of the things that people have said about what would be different if the Celtics had maybe faced a different path. But even with those inferences that I can make where I can say, well, maybe the Celtics could have gotten here, even with those other teams in their way. There's also the opposite conversation of, but what if they don't? What if they actually go up against the Bucks and the ability of Giannis as a wing slasher is just too much to guard for Boston when you have to also factor in the fact that Damian Lillard can shoot from 50, right? What if you go up against a New York Knicks team in the Eastern Conference Finals in a situation where this team is the hottest team in basketball, it felt like, starting with that Indiana series. It just felt like they were destined to win, right? It felt like they were just now they didn't, obviously, because they fell apart. But when they faced that Indiana Pacers team coming off of the Philly series, everything felt like the Knicks were about to be on a run we'd never seen it to come through Madison Square Garden in quite some time. And if it weren't for like the Jenga tower literally falling on from underneath itself, we could have seen a legitimately different Eastern Conference Finals right then and there, right?
Yeah.
So it all makes me wonder a little bit more about just what the Celtics really are capable of if the East is at its full power. Now, I've been the proponent of you have to be who's in front of you, and I still believe that. But I come away from this NBA Finals wondering if the situations were different, would the Celtics still be the champions? I don't know if they would still be. Maybe they're still equally as dominant. Maybe they're not as dominant, but they still hoist up the Larry O'Brien. That's kind of the thing that I ask myself. And there's been a multitude of champions as of late where I haven't had to scratch my head this hard.
Well, we're going to have to see it next year because the top 6 of the Boston Celtics, they're still under contract.
Yeah.
And the other guys are going to be healthy. You're going to have a full training camp of Dame and Giannis. So if they can't figure it out after that, I don't know what to tell you. And the other teams are going to be healthy. So maybe that question is going to become, that answer is going to be coming sooner rather than later. But what I know right now is that the Boston Celtics have shown us all season long that they were the best team in basketball. We had the same conversation with the Denver Nuggets last year. They were the best team in basketball all year long. And in the NBA playoffs, they continued to show that.
Yeah.
They won. Congratulations to Jaylen Brown for winning MVP, though. Quick thoughts on that?
I think it was deserved. I mean, I think people are going to be all shocked about it just from the fact that Jason Tatum played well. And don't get me wrong, I think that Jason Tatum had a real debate, as he had a real chance. He had a real probability of being named Finals MVP with the fact that he was a top performer in the finals. I mentioned this last podcast, it definitely was underrated that he quite literally was able to help in guarding Daniel Gafford and Derek
Yeah.
Lively. Like that was a part of the Boston Celtics scheme that he was trusted to guard the center
Yes.
position and played well
Yes.
in that situation as well, while obviously being one of the, the better offensive hubs on the team. But I think Jaylen Brown, if you want to go deeper than that, sometimes the NBA Finals MVP isn't always just about how they performed in the NBA Finals, if that makes any sense. Sometimes the totality of the postseason run does control where people lean in terms of who they vote as NBA Finals MVP, unless you just like went completely bonkers in the NBA Finals to the point that you're like undeniably the MVP.
Right.
And Jaylen Brown has just arguably been the Celtics' best performer from a consistency standpoint the entire postseason. So it just felt like that was a fair way to cap it off, even if Jason Tatum, to some, including myself, should still be considered as the best player on the Celtics.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I think that Jaylen Brown, I mean, like Jason Tatum was great defensively in the series too, but it's kind of hidden more because, again, it's against the centers. They're not like the main like offensive proponents to the Dallas Mavericks. Jaylen Brown, especially in those like in the early games of the series where he was one-on-one Kyrie Irving, one-on-one with Luka Doncic, it's just seen more in that sense. It's just definitely seen more. And plus, again, the efficiency was there, even though I think that Jason Tatum was overall more impactful to the Boston Celtics team than Jaylen Brown. But I think he could have gone either way. I didn't have a problem with any of them, but congratulations to Jaylen Brown for doing it. Conference Finals MVP and MVP as well. Good for him. And, Tatum finally got the title, so good on him as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the Boston Celtics. That's them winning. We got to talk about the Dallas Mavericks now, though, because, man, Luka, big-time carry job in this series, mostly because whenever they went on the road, Kyrie Irving just seemed to disappear in front of the Boston Celtics fans. The defense wasn't as effective, obviously, with Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford having to leave the paint a lot of the time this series. And let's be honest, the role players didn't really play up to par as they did in the previous series as well. Jay, how do you think the season of the Dallas Mavericks went? How do you think their chances are in the West after next year? Because we talked about how deep the West could be.
So first of all, I think we need to commend the Dallas Mavericks. This was a team that was struggling before the trade deadline. This was a team that had missed.
They were eighth. They were eighth in the West.
This was a team that was eighth in the West. This is a team that didn't make the in-season or didn't play well in the in-season tournament, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Or they didn't even make the in-season, like the actual bracket.
The Final Four, yeah. They didn't make the Final Four, yeah.
Yeah. And then when they had the trade deadline that they had, many argued against the trade moves that they had, right? There were many pundits that believed that getting Daniel Gafford and getting PJ Washington was not enough of a needle mover to mean much for them this season, especially when you look at the kind of future draft capital that they threw in order to essentially make what was considered a win now move from the Dallas Mavericks perspective. And it paid off. It paid off immensely. I think we also need to give a lot of credit to Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd had a rough stint with Milwaukee, with the Nets, had a short little stint with the Lakers where he got to learn off the bench for a little while as well. And it took him a little bit of time in Dallas. Remember, there was a time early on in the Luka Doncic era where we were wondering if Jason Kidd was going to have a long enough leash for this team, or if he was going to be another one of those guys next to a superstar talent of the caliber of Luka, which there aren't many, but next to a guy of that caliber that was going to be on the hot seat just about every single year when tip-off kicked off, right?
Yeah.
And instead, he really coached his tail off. He unlocked a Dante Exum during a regular season. We got to see real strides out of Jaden Hardy. Shout out to the coaching staff that included Tyson Chandler, as you mentioned last podcast, into really coaching up the heck out of Derek Lively, who had an immensely great season as a rookie. And not just a rookie who played well, but a rookie who contributed to a NBA Finals team. Think about that, TV. We don't say that about rookies. And we dang sure don't say that about rookies at the center position. We don't say that about rookies at the center position in 2024. We just don't.
100%.
You know what I mean? And he was arguably if you're talking about consistency throughout the postseason, he was arguably their third best player the entire run. You know what I mean? And Jason Kidd really unlocked something in this team. He gave the league an interesting playoff / like regular season dynamic of the two big lineup in terms of the platoon lineup thing with playing Daniel Gafford a couple minutes, pulling in Derek Lively, putting him in, flipping it back to Daniel Gafford, and kind of playing this energizer bunny role that pick and roll centers tend to kind of play as like rim runners. There's nothing to be upset about if you're Dallas, outside of just the fact that you came up short. But everything else points to a season that you couldn't ask for better, outside of obviously winning the chip.
100%. I mean, my look at this season is that the Dallas Mavericks made the correct moves, like the perfect moves in order for their team to move forward. We've been asking them to improve their center position for so long, and they finally did it. Like, we talked about this like the minute Derek Lively got drafted. Like, we talked about this after the draft. We're like, this feels like this is the perfect room for Dallas. And then I read this exact quote exactly that we were talking about. It was like, how long does it take for Derek Lively to get into the starting lineup? Because we hopefully won't see many Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber minutes anymore.
That's exactly what, because we were just talking about the fact that no matter what, when it comes to the Maxi Kleber, Dwight Powell minutes, they're just never going to have a strong enough rim protector to be dangerous in the West. And we got to see the proof of that when they ran a two-man of ran a two-man of Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively, to the point that when Lively went out, remember back in the Minnesota series, when Lively went out for the one game, they dropped it.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Like, we've been waiting for this for so long. They finally do it, and look at that. They made it to the freaking NBA Finals. You pair that with Luka Doncic, and it works out completely, perfectly. What I will say about this Dallas Mavericks team is that this season looked like the most fun this team was having. Luka Doncic, you could tell in previous seasons where he was just frustrated with how he was playing, his team was playing, just because he felt like things weren't, in the right places at the time. This season, I've never seen Luka Doncic praise his teammates as much as he did this year. Whether it's the connection he developed with, the friendship that he's built with Kyrie Irving. Talking about how Derek Lively is a rookie, but he also feels like a true veteran in this league. Talking about how great PJ Washington has been in this edition. Like, this is the most I've seen Luka be gleeful throughout an entire NBA season. You have that going for them. You finally have a healthy season of Kyrie. It feels like the Dallas Mavericks have made all the right moves. And I think that this season can't be anything else but a success. You take down 350-win teams on your way to the NBA Finals. Like, it just sucks that you weren't able to come close. And for me, going forward for this Dallas Mavericks team, I'm just worried that as much as how great they are this year, and trust me, we know that they have the talent enough going forward to potentially, run it back, go back to the NBA Finals. But they are a victim as much as the rest of the West, that there's only so little spaces. And then you got teams like the Spurs upcoming. You got teams like the Grizzlies finally coming back. The growth of so many teams that weren't even in the play-in situation, just getting better. Where do they fall in all this? And we remember the Thunder are going to get better next year. What's going to happen with the Clippers? I mean, I think the Clippers have a lot of other issues, but nonetheless. But what's going to happen with the Lakers next year? There's so many teams that the West is so freaking deep that these sort of moments of you being in the NBA Finals are so valuable. And if you aren't able to take advantage, who knows when's your next opportunity? So as much as I think that Dallas has the tools and they're ready to maybe have a chance to run it back, how likely is that, especially when the West is so deep? And to be honest, it's a crapshoot for whoever can be in the NBA Finals next year once again.
100%. And I think another thing to really factor in when you talk about the state of the Western Conference is dude, it's just not the safest place to play, bro.
Exactly.
If there's no better representation that the West is just as difficult as it is, let's just talk about Dallas's run. Everybody was gassing it up on the way to the NBA Finals that they beat 350-win teams to get to this point. But you have to think about the fact that they faced 350-win teams, and there's still like a cool 3-4 other teams in the West that could be scarier than they were this year going into next season, especially with the fact that this offseason could be really impactful.
It's insane, like the state of the West going into next season. Like there's gonna be one or two teams disappointed that they're not even gonna get out the first playing game.
I mean, you know what's so crazy? I was thinking about this earlier when I was thinking about teams like the Pelicans, for example, who like really had to face the music after getting like the doors blown off in that series against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Is like, sure, there's gonna be a lot of teams that are gonna have to make decisions, right? For example, the Pelicans were talking about in their offseason, or their exit interview, that we've seen enough of this team as currently constructed, and that major conversations are going to need to be had, and that major changes are probably among things that need to be, really prioritized this offseason. Obviously, Brandon Ingram is at the top of that list, mainly because of just like contract situations and things of that nature, right? But when you look at the West right now, and the kind of movement that we could see with guys, just bouncing around and different things like that. And it's not the deepest class, but there are some teams with an interesting amount of money. There's a lot of teams with, mid-level exceptions. There's teams like the Nuggets who might not be able to bring back KCP if, the money somewhere else, speaks well. And there's a couple of different versions of like a KCP kind of player where teams would love to bring the guy back, but they might not have the money for him, right? So you just look at the state of the West and you think about all the changes that can happen for good and for bad. And you just look at the fact that Dallas can't do much around all of those changes because they don't have a lot of flexibility moving forward themselves. Yes. And you just have to really wonder, did they really just squander their only chance?
I feel like that's the way, like, unless you're the Thunder, I'll say this, unless you're the Thunder and you have like this like treasure trove of draft picks and you have a bunch of young talent, if it comes to any other one of these teams, I guess you can make the case for the Nuggets as well. But like, if you don't take advantage of your one chance, then someone's just there to take it for the next year. Who says that the Grizzlies don't come back with a healthy Jaren Jackson? They add Donovan Clingan, and they don't go on their own little Cinderella run as well. Who says that's not going to happen? There's a chance. So like the West is so wide open, and I think that any year, any one of these teams go, and this includes the Dallas Mavericks, you have to try and try and grab it by the throat and go for it. If you don't lose it, and if you lose out on the opportunity, like what there is next? Like I don't know if like it's never fully guaranteed. While in the East, it feels like the Boston Celtics is like, you know what? We have our 6 guys coming back next year. The East is good. Is very good. I mean, they're still like very top heavy, but we have a talent that we can compete with these teams on a night-to-night basis. They still feel like they're the top guys in the division. And the Dallas, I don't know if you're going to be able to feel that, especially with the immense talent there in the West.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it now, especially with Rich Paul's recent comments about the LeBron James, Bronny James hookup thing not necessarily being like a linchpin. Because many were making the argument that like the Dallas Mavericks were dropping a lot of news around the idea of drafting Bronny with the last pick in the NBA draft in the second round at 58 as being this ploy to maybe lure LeBron James on a minimum, which is insane, by the way, if LeBron James ever took a minimum, because I would just be surprised if he ever did it. But obviously Rich Paul also would be surprised because he actually squashed that whole thing earlier. I think it was either today or yesterday. He had mentioned that like, the idea of LeBron James taking the minimum to go to Dallas was like completely out of the picture, like completely untenable. But unless something like that happened, I just don't know how this team gets better enough to compete with the rest of the West. Now, the West has its own problems. Will Paul George go back to the Clippers? Who knows? Because Dallas, I mean, is Denver able to bring back a KCP, for example, and shore up their bench? Who knows? Obviously, a team like the Sacramento Kings who kind of fell off this season.
Each team has a question mark. Each of these teams have their question
There's
mark.
a ton of different things going on because Malik Monk can mess around and be in the Eastern Conference next year,
Yeah.
for all we know, right? All these different random things that factor in with these Western Conference teams who are in the second apron, like a Phoenix, for example, that's immensely talented at the top, but can't really do much else outside of that, right? There's a lot of different stuff going on to the West where when the dust settles, am I going to think that the Dallas Mavericks are the best team after free agency and some of these bigger trades happen? I really don't think so. I don't think they're going to be a top 6 team in the West. And if you're in those bottom 2 slots, it ain't good for you.
They are going to be in the same range as they were this year, between like 3 to 8. And and to say that is the range it could be in the West is insane. So, like, who knows what's going to happen next year? Obviously, they still have Luka Doncic. They have another year of him and Kyrie going to be able to gain some more chemistry together in the offseason. Derek Lively is going to get better. You still have PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford on the contract. But what about the rest of the guys in that roster? That's going to be something that's going to be talked about more in the offseason, of course. But there's still a lot of question marks for them. Are they going to be able to come back here? They're talented? Probably. It's just the West. You just never know. So we'll have to wait and see about that. But Jay, we've reached the end of another NBA season, another long playoff run. If there's one word for you to describe this entire NBA season, what would it be? Just like one word that just comes into your mind.
Parity, easily. I mean, not just the fact that this is our 6th NBA champion, our 6th different NBA champion in 6 straight years, right? But Indiana made the Eastern Conference Finals. The New York Knicks looked like one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference this year. Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks were literally resurrected by the trade deadline. Anthony Edwards was getting 80, he was getting like Michael Jordan 89 conversation, like in terms of like his kind of comparisons. I mean, man, there was just so many. Okay, look at it this way. Some of your favorite players in NBA history didn't make it to the second round.
Yeah.
LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell barely made it to the second round. You see what I'm saying? Barely made it past Orlando. Like, when you go down the list of some of your favorite players in NBA history, like if you're a fan, especially that came in around like the beginning of the LeBron James era, there are guys that you have followed their entire career that you have like that are like their whole shtick is their insane postseason performance ability. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, right? Keep going down that list. These are guys who you basically, when you think playoff basketball, you think this guy. And so many of those guys either didn't even make it to the playoffs or didn't make it past the first round. Yes. Parity is the word for me. This season was easily the craziest year in terms of start to finish that I've ever seen.
That's a great word to describe this year. And mine is sort of similar to that, but my word to like describe this year is fit. For me, what this season showed me is we are fully past the super team era. What matters now more than ever is roster construction and fits of players. Just look at the two teams in the NBA Finals. We talked about for years the Dallas Mavericks needing some big man help for Luka Doncic. You add that, those two guys fit perfectly as like the perfect role options for Luka. They made it to the NBA Finals. He finally has an outlet there. The Boston Celtics, they have been talented for years. And yes, they added 2 all-star caliber players, but they added guys that were kind of like super versions of players that you had in the past. You have guys that are, even though it's more talented, just a better fit overall for your team. the teams, like, you look at all the teams that made like deep into the finals. The Indiana Pacers, they had a style of play that they played all season long. They carried it over to the playoffs, and they found a massive success. Not to forget, they made it to the freaking in-season tournament finals too. So be like the Pacers this year, pretty good season for them, like, all around. The Minnesota Timberwolves, they finally figured out continuity and fit together after this many years. You mentioned all the guys that we see as these playoff staples, and we see all their teams as either dysfunctional, lots of turnover, not set rosters. While the rest of the teams that we know have been, playing with together for years, who were carefully constructed after years of roster construction, they're the ones that made it far. This era of NBA roster construction is more meticulous, and it's also more like based on the whole puzzle, the whole piece of the pie, because you got to think of like what the coach wants. You got to think about how these players interact with each other on and off the court. There's so many more things here. It's not like 10 years ago where it's like, okay, let's slap LeBron, Wade, and Bosh together and figure out the rest every single year. It's no longer that way, and building for fit is more important than anything. And all you need is maybe 1 or 2 stars in there. And as you can see with the Dallas Mavericks, those are enough to take you to the NBA Finals.
I think that's a really astute observation to say that the super team era is looks like it's in the rear view now. When you look at the perspective of not a super team in terms of like just talent. Again, this Celtics team had 6 all-star players when you look at the fact that Derek White damn near made an all-star team himself, right? But the concept of a top-heavy roster where you're paying multiple guys the max, and well, obviously I know that they're doing that in a sense with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but you're paying not 2 guys, 3 guys the max, and building the rest out of minimum guys, right? That concept of roster building, the Matt Ishbia special over in Phoenix, yeah. Right? That's a concept that definitely is dead when you think about the concept of the second apron kicking in next year really being impactful in team construction. Because starting next year, if you are a second apron team, like a Phoenix Suns, for example, if you want to make a trade, you have to be able to bring in exact matching salary in order to conduct the trade. Otherwise, you, sir, do not have a trade. And it needs to be down to the dollar. So yes. It makes it where now, to be quite frank, like, teams are going to have to learn how to ball on a budget. You're going to need to be able to get a superstar talent, a superstar, or at least a star caliber secondary guy. And then you're going to need to be able to build out a roster full of talented guys, but guys who operate as glue within the roster that, again, like you mentioned earlier, fit within these roles of being able to build within continuity, accepting their stature within the team's construction, right? These different things where, yes, you need a star talent in order to win a championship. You need at least 2 to really be able to be a threat for a championship. But I think substituting out that third guy for 2 or 3 really good guys is going to be a concept that I think we saw the beginning of with Denver winning the championship last year. And I think this roster fully epitomized like what the best version of a roster building journey is supposed to look like.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not even just, finding fit now. It's about trying to balance, the old and the young, getting the right amount of veterans, making sure you have guys ready, because you're not going to be able to pay everyone at the same time, making sure you have guys ready on the wing. It's a weird mix you have to kind of like, you have to take into account. And you can even look back to the Golden State Warriors team where they tried to balance out the stars and like the young guys, and they weren't able to make it work. Even the Dallas Mavericks, they had to lose on some of these guys. If you're able to figure out a formula that can like transition into like keeping, the top guys happy while still bringing in these young talent to help, replace the guys down the line, then you got to cover it. But the thing is, it's like with this whole second apron, like you mentioned, with this whole new like luxury tax system, if you do it, you can't do it like the old way, or else you're going to be paying a lot more on the dollar.
Yeah.
You got to be ready for it, and you got to be ready for all scenarios. So the Madness Beer special, like I mentioned, it's just not going to be good for them. A lot for them going forward. So it's going to be very interesting. But this season, I would say it was a major success. The inclusion of the in-season tournament, All-Star Weekend still dead, but but the trade deadline was great. You had a great first 2 rounds of the playoffs. First 2 rounds of the playoffs were incredible. Kind of died off near the end, especially with a lot of sweeps and short series. But very entertaining teams, like you mentioned, a lot of parity. I think overall this season has been amazing, and I'm just excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, I like you said, we are primed for one really interesting off season. I think there's a lot of different discussions that can be had. Free agency is going to be really important because we think that a lot of guys are going to go back to the teams that they, are currently on, but there's a lot that could happen. OG Anunoby might see a bag from a team, and coming after what he just faced with the New York Knicks, he might just take a bag. Pascal Siakam sounds like he's going to go back to Indiana. That one's really solid. But what does Indiana do with that mid-level exception to really shore up this roster, considering they did just make the Eastern Conference Finals, and you can't just be content with keeping the roster as is if you have any hopes of going back. Boston obviously has their top six and they're cinched in. But what about the LeBron Jameses or the Paul Georges or even James Harden, DeMar DeRozan? Go down to Isaiah Hartenstein, who played himself into a bag, might I say. Nicholas Claxton. There still are a very interesting group of free agents that can really swing the balance of power. I mentioned, I brought up KCP earlier as a guy who would be interesting. Najee Marshall was a low-key guy, but I think he's a dude who could be really good on a lot of different teams as a wing guy. Like, there's a lot of different swing players in free agency, as well as a bunch of interesting things that could happen this offseason, including, we didn't talk about this because it's not really the podcast for it, but like Minnesota, we talked about them in their postmortem. Like, they still have a money decision to make that probably involves Karl Anthony Towns. Like, this offseason has us geared up for what could be a really crazy next season. And that's coming off of this year that we thought was basically insane from start to, let's say, like the conference finals.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, but
so yeah, it's crazy to think that this year was so nuts, and next year could actually mess around and be crazier. Like, that's insane to think about.
I mean, the game keeps improving. Adam Silver is thinking of more and more ideas to get like this even like stuff to the regular season more and like more engaging. There's just a lot of things you got to be excited for, man. And what this end of the season told me is like, I'm excited for what's next season and who's going to be able to challenge this Boston Celtics team. Because going to next season, I feel like they're still the best team in the league. What moves are going to be made? What changes are going to be happening to these rosters in order for them to challenge this Boston Celtics team? Because they seem like they're the barometer right now.
Gold standard at the moment.
It is the gold standard, 100%. But yeah, it's the end of another regular season, another season, guys. Let us know down below what you guys think of the finals, what you guys thought of the season overall. We reached the end, but of course, people love the NBA offseason just as much as the regular season too. So we're going to be locked into. Don't even worry about it. We're going to move on, though, to the next topic. And we're going to start off some offseason news because the Detroit Pistons are cleaning house right now. And they're not cleaning house in the typical rebuilding sense, starting over with a new roster. I mean, why would they? They still have freaking Kate Cunningham and a bunch of young dudes. But we know that Troy Weaver got let go earlier in June. And now the guy that he hired, Monty Williams, gets fired after one season with the team. After signing what, Jay? I think it's the largest contract in coach's history.
He was the highest paid coach in NBA history. I think he was like, what was it, like 70 something million or something crazy like that?
Yeah,
he was getting like 12 million a year. Yeah.
It's crazy. And after 1 year, they let him go. Mind you, they still have to pay him $65 million over the next 4 years, even though they fired him from this contract. But they're starting fresh. They're getting a new general manager. Now they're getting a new coach. Jay, was this a premature decision? By the way, this was made by Pistons ownership. This is the ownership group that made this decision eventually, essentially.
Who's my dude that's the new head guy in charge? You remember my guy's name? Because they got rid of Troy Weaver. I'm trying to think of who my boy is. Trajan Langdon or something like that?
Trajan Langdon, yeah.
Trajan Langdon. I just want to make sure I'm getting his name correct. Shout out to you, my boy. You're the new GOAT in Detroit Pistons history, my boy. You might be the new GOAT after these 2 moves you'd have been involved in.
Yes. He was just the GM of the Pelicans recently, by the way. That's just like what I learned here. Yeah.
The Detroit Pistons ownership told us, and I'm not a Detroit Pistons fan or anything, but I'm just saying, it was reported that Detroit Pistons ownership was going to let Langdon make decisions on the concept of keeping a Troy Weaver around. And many of us read the tea leaves around that as like, okay, sure, you're going to give him the fortitude to get rid of a Troy Weaver if he, quote unquote, wants to. But are you really going to let him make that decision, right? We've seen the Pistons for the last couple of years be really good at just kind of throwing money at things and hoping that something sticks, right? But at the end of the day, they kind of just have this figurehead around that's just meant to kind of parade around and take a bunch of media criticism while the Pistons mess around and just kind of not do anything but continue to operate in incompetence, right?
Right.
Trajan Langdon might be the GOAT in Detroit in just one summer because he has the chance, after getting rid of Troy Weaver, to maybe shore up this center rotation that has gotten too extensive to even make sense of. Finally get some veteranship in the locker room to help around a Cade Cunningham, to help around a Sir Thompson, a Jaden Ivey, right?
Yeah.
He has the real opportunity to really imprint his effect on this roster in a way that's no longer with the Troy Weaver era of things, that was made up just of a lot of not really looking forward in terms of building a roster.
Right.
Right? There was a lot of incompetency across the board. And I'm not going to lie to you. The Monty Williams aspect of letting him go, this gets to my actual answer. Sorry, I've been kind of dragging it. But the part that makes this so special from Trajan Langdon deciding to get rid of Monty Williams, and respect to Monty Williams, I'm sure he is a good coach in retrospect. Good coach or not, what happened last season can't happen.
Yeah.
For a young developing basketball team to go an entire year where the Detroit Pistons once again are bottom 5 in the league record-wise, and we didn't see any individual development, I'm being so serious when I say this too. I didn't see one player grow in any kind of way last season that made me think, okay, Detroit is cooking with grease here. I didn't see one, because Cade Cunningham, we still got a short sample size on. They were playing with Jaden Ivey's minutes. Isaiah Stewart as a stretch big was an interesting concept. Jalen Duren still has struggles in pick and roll defense, despite the fact that he is a rebounding machine. Sir Thompson, defensive acumen, solid. We didn't see any steps forward from the 3-ball. Any. From a shooting perspective. Yeah. We didn't even see this. We didn't even see a push for Sir Thompson to be more aggressive as an offensive threat, right? You go down the list of all the things that you would want to see from a young basketball team if you know they're going to be bad, and we didn't see any of it. They went on a record-long losing streak that had them getting put in the Guinness World Record books. Something you don't want to be in for bad stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So as much as I respect Monty Williams as a head coach, what happened last season cannot happen. And I don't know if he just went on autopilot or if this goes deeper than just the head coach. But I think that's why Trajan Langdon clearing house is that much more important and is going to be that much more effective when we see the way this offseason plays out. Shout out to the Pistons. The Pistons may be offseason winners already without doing a damn thing, just out of the fact that they have simply, depending on who they hire as a coach, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that in a second, depending on who they hire as a head coach, they might just win this offseason off of strictly becoming more competent. We saw what that did for the Kings. I'm not calling Detroit the Kings.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the Detroit Pistons are going to take the leap that the Kings made. But what I'm saying is we saw the difference that competency added to a moribund franchise like the Sacramento Kings, where when they finally got a grown-ass man in the room who put these guys down and said, you're going to guard, this is how we're going to play offense, we're going to run through stars, and we're going to play a certain kind of basketball and really be competent in terms of your roster construction around that philosophy, the Sacramento Kings made the playoffs for the first time in a freaking eon.
You want to look at other teams that have done this recently? The Phoenix Suns done this recently in a change
with Monty Williams, hilariously
enough. You had that happen. You had the Houston Rockets recently when they went through their changes. This is just the next team in the pot. Because what's great about this move, in my opinion, was that one, you let the guy start off and have his guys in the room. You know, sometimes where you're like, oh, we'll see how this goes. We'll make it maybe like a 1-2 year transition. Nope. He was like, you know what? I'm going to get my guys in the room. I want to have this team built and kind of constructed in the way I see fit. And then letting him have that control, which is great. I think that was a great move from the Pistons anyway. So a lot of what you said already, I 100% agree with. But we got to talk about what their next coach is. Gotcha. And I'm going to say it right now, Jay. We talked about this before the pod. JJ Redick. This is the exact situation we want to see him in. Starting up with a young team, making sure that they're learning under his system, his acumen, and not having to rush him in terms of his rebuilding process, so that he's forced to win right away. We talked about him in the Lakers position. We want to see him as a coach, but we don't want him to be, forced into a situation, have a lot of pressure to make them a contender, and then when it falls short of expectations, it's put on JJ Redick. In this scenario, he'll have time. He'll have time to work with not only Pistons ownership, but also the new GM. They could be a tandem working together, a la, Greg Popovich, R.C. Buford in years past. So give him that opportunity, start fresh in the system. I think that this is a lot more of a desirable situation if I'm JJ Redick than the Los Angeles Lakers.
We said this back when the JJ to Los Angeles conversation first started, of what we thought made the most sense. And you're not going to tell him what to do, right? Obviously, At the end of the day, if they throw him a bag, if it looks like a situation worth going into from his perspective, you do what you want to do. But when you talk about the idea, especially with, again, going back to the cleaning house aspect, Langdon is going to be running this draft. You obviously want to hire your new head coach before the NBA draft. So I think there is a real possibility that we hear news about Detroit bringing in a new head coach before next Wednesday. I think that has to be the next thing that comes. I think they don't fire Monty Williams now unless their goal is to go after somebody and make that move before the draft, with the idea that Langdon and whatever coach he brings in, even if it's not JJ, their philosophy is lockstep in terms of who they're going to be taking with their first round pick. And I think they have a couple of picks in this draft, if I'm not mistaken.
Should be.
But nonetheless, obviously, it's going to be important for them to make that coaching decision before next Wednesday when the draft starts. But TV, this is something that I brought up to you off camera that I thought was so important. We obviously know about JJ Redick's podcast with LeBron James, right? The one where they go through a lot of the X's and O's of the NBA in terms of just what they see in terms of the game. We know who JJ Redick is as a basketball mind when talking to guys like a Zach Lowe, like a Tim Legler about these things in terms of the intricacies of the game. But let's also think about what he brings to the table as a talent manager and think about the kind of environment that he comes from. He has played around a multitude of all-star caliber and MVP caliber players throughout his tenure in the NBA, right? Obviously, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons at the peak of his powers, Zion Williamson. I mean, the list can go on for a while because he played for a handful of teams, obviously, but he's played Dwight Howard. Like, he has played next to a multitude of MVP and all-star caliber guys. Then you think about his podcast, going deeper than just the X's and O's that he provides. But let's talk about the guys that he's brought onto the podcast. The Tyrese Halliburtons, the Jalen Williams, the Anthony Simons, Paolo Ben, Franz Wagner. I can keep going down the list of all the young talent that has been making their way through the NBA that he has been able to tap into the minds of, right? To be able to get the perspectives of, not just in terms of how they know ball, but from their personalities as well. So he's not this old man coach that has an older style of running a basketball team that might not coincide with the new generation of potential all-stars on the come up. He comes from an environment now where he's surrounded himself with the youth of the NBA, with the next generation of superstars, picked their brains and got a better understanding of how they see the game. That means a lot when you think about a Detroit Pistons team with a guy, for example, who was considered once potentially as like one of these all-star caliber talents in Cade Cunningham, who's been dying for a coach to just unlock his what many people thought coming into the draft was a Luka Doncic-esque possibility in terms of just his on-ball creation and his ability, at the wing position to play point guard, right? Been waiting for somebody to come and truly unlock that. JJ Redick, I think when you put together his on-court prowess, his podcast material in terms of the kind of things he goes into in terms of his podcast, and his on-air, off-air relationships that he's developed within the league, Detroit is the perfect A, rookie head coach job, and B, JJ Redick rookie head coach job. I'm not saying we made a perfect pitch, but TV, if we send this vid to Detroit, I think they throw a bag at him tomorrow. Because I think everything spells out that JJ Redick needs to be the coach of this team or this offseason. I'm not going to say this offseason is a bust because obviously I just said that this team might have just won the offseason just off of competency alone. But this team would be insanely different in terms of how I view them going into next year if they bring JJ Redick in as a head coach, knowing what we've seen just over the last couple of weeks with what they've been cleaning house, with the way they've been cleaning house.
100%. And look, this is my last point in terms of the situation.
Yeah.
You talked about the podcast, him picking the brains of these young guys. You talked about the players he's played with. I think more importantly, when it comes to JJ Redick, all the organizations he's played for has been a solid organization, a solid, base of the team. Orlando, multiple finals appearance. You had Dwight Howard. They were contenders every year. The Clippers, obviously they didn't make it all the way there, but they were always in the mix. They knew how to build a roster, how to coach up a team. The Pelicans, the 76ers, remember how important he was to that team.
Yes.
Even in the end of his career with the Dallas Mavericks, he had a team run by the Mavs, who run by Mark Cuban. We already know that they know how to be run over the last 20 years or so with Luka Doncic. He has never been in a situation where you're like, this place is an absolute dumpster fire. This place is absolutely this. Like, he knows what it takes for a team to be competent, and he knows, and like you mentioned, when you pair that with the fact that this guy is just learning from these guys every day through his podcast, understanding like the new mindset of today's NBA, it just feels like the perfect fit. It feels like the absolute perfect fit. Pistons, listen to us. Just give it a listen.
I know he's the front runner for the Lakers job, but I'm just saying, if you throw him a higher number and if you throw him a higher number and throw this podcast clip right here to him, I'm just saying, hey,
100%. Let us know what you guys think down below. What do you think of the Monty Williams fire? potentially JJ Redick getting the Pistons position, or who do you all think would be like better to add into that position as well? You can go that route. You can also even go the route of maybe getting one of those assistant coaches from another bench and try going that as well. But let us know what you guys think down below. What should the Pistons do next with their head coaching position? Jay, we talked a lot about the season. We're getting to the off season. It's been an awesome podcast so far, but of course we got to go into our staples now. It is time for the NBA draft. And Jay, and I'm gonna let the fans know we're gonna be running these drafts in a little bit different these next 2 weeks. So today, of course, we got the 2017 draft. We got that. But next week, we're going to try and finish off the series into going into a new summer of fresh new drafts, fresh new ideas, and all that by doing a pretty crazy draft where we include the rest of the draft years after 2017. So be on the lookout for that. But today, we got the 2017 draft, which is pretty perfect because Jason Tatum just won the NBA Finals, and we got to get his draft class here to build a great team around. Jay, how do you feel about this pool of players that we have today?
I said it to you right before the podcast started. I think this might actually be like one of our more fun groups to draft from in quite a while. We've had a few duds on this journey through the NBA draft selections, but this right here, this is definitely one of the better ones. Might be like a top 5 class of all time, low-key. Might be. I'm not locking it in yet, but this class was pretty dope.
I think this year and like next year's draft class. No, we're not talking next episode, but the 2018. These are 2 back-to-back amazing drafts, and I think this draft doesn't get talked about enough. This draft is absolutely fantastic, and we have an awesome group of players to choose from today. And you know how these drafts go. Jay gets the first pick, I get the next 2, and we run things serpentine style. So Jay, I'm gonna throw it over to you. First overall pick in this draft. Who are you going with?
Man, I'm still gonna go with the guy who just won the championship. Let me go ahead and get that boy Jason Tatum. I'm still leaning with the kid. I definitely think he's the best player in this draft. I'm not gonna lie.
That is a very good choice over there, Jason Tatum with the number 1 overall pick. Gotta go with 2 back-to-back picks here, and I think I like where I'm at with this. So the first guy I'm gonna choose is I think clearly the second best player in this draft. Let me go with Donovan Mitchell.
Okay.
To go there. Some might say he got snubbed for Rookie of the Year. Of course, it's the Ben Simmons Rookie of the Year class, but I think he would be a great addition to this team. And then after that, got to give him a very good big man, the best big man in this draft, in my opinion, Bam Adebayo, the pick right after Donovan Mitchell. So let me get those 2 guys to start off my team.
I like it. Honestly, I figured Bam would come off pretty quickly. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm actually gonna take former Bull. Let me get Lauri Markkanen.
Okay.
And then
prime version of themselves, by the way.
Prime version has to be factored in. I'm gonna take him because I'm afraid if I don't, that you will.
Yes.
Oh, wait. Because your backcourt's not done yet, so I'm not sure. Actually, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and take De'Aaron Fox.
I was going to say, if you don't take him off the board, you're giving me possibly the best backcourt in this draft class.
Definitely scary.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a good pick over there. So you got yourselves De'Aaron Fox and Lauri Markkanen. All right, next couple picks here. I think this falls perfectly into place for me because not only am I going to get some defense, I'm gonna get probably arguably the best defense at this specific positions in their prime. So let me go with OG Anunoby at the 3.
Yeah.
I gotta get my Toronto Raptor boy in there.
Yeah.
OG Anunoby. And then you know what? I'm comfortable with him running the team. And I'm gonna go with another NBA champion, man. Derek White. You're going to be coming there in my guard position.
I can't be mad at it. That's good though. That's a good one. Derek White is talking about prime versions here.
I'm basically getting this season's Derek White. Let's be completely honest. So,
man, OG Anunoby, Derek White is kind of crazy. I'm not going to lie. You know what though? Prime version was low-key crazy. first year Lonzo Ball. I'm gonna take first year Lonzo Ball, and I'm actually gonna put him at the one.
I'm not even gonna say first year Lonzo Ball. Just take like first half of the season Chicago Bull Lonzo. Just get
No,
that
for real. No,
honestly.
for real. Yeah, but Chicago Bulls Lonzo for sure, I think actually would be kind of insane. I'm gonna put him at the one. I'm gonna put De'Aaron at the two, just because he's more of a scoring guard. And then,
actually, wait, yeah, you got one more pick after this. Yeah.
I'm not gonna hold you. Wait, I think I almost blew it, and now I'm not gonna do it. I almost blew it. No, I was gonna do recency bias, but I'm not gonna do it. I'm actually gonna take Jared Allen here.
Oh, I thought you were gonna have fun, but not take Jared Allen.
Yeah, I was gonna make a recency bias pick that wasn't going to include Jared Allen, and then I realized that like he's on the freaking board, and I just need to do the right thing.
I know exactly who you were talking about as well. And to be honest, I'm probably just gonna take him in this position because I think that it would actually no. This is interesting actually. Because if we're getting prime versions of these guys,
that's a key point in a draft like this, because all you need is one crazy season of that guy to be like the insane version you need to optimize your team.
Am I comfortable with this guy? You know what? This guy was getting like conversations to potentially max contracts in his prime. Give me like 20 and 12 John Collins, like that version of John Collins.
Okay.
Where he was like where people thought he was going to be the number 2 next to Trae Young, and we knew what happened there. But best version of John Collins before the injuries, I was choosing between him and Kyle Kuzma, but I think his athleticism just fits this team a lot better. So let me go with John Collins.
Okay, can I tell you the guy that I was actually about to blow this whole draft for? Yes. I'm telling you right now, what I saw from a passing perspective from Isaiah Hartenstein, along with the fact that he just played hard-nosed defense, could hit the floater like insane, like we were seeing in that playoff series against Philly, like prime Isaiah Hartenstein would be this season, and I really kind of like Isaiah Hartenstein going into this offseason as a guy that people should like potentially throw some money at. That was the guy. The other guy who I didn't have nearly as in consideration, but definitely was like a guy that I was like really thinking about, was, if we're talking prime, healthy Jonathan Isaac is still a DPOY candidate. I'm sorry.
He is, no, for sure. There's so many guys on this like board that we just completely left off. Malik Monk. We didn't even get a chance to even discuss like Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart.
Hart too, yeah.
I was really thinking of him in my 4 position. I was really thinking about it as well. And then even in the second round, you got players. I mean, like you mentioned, Isaiah Hartenstein, Dylan Brooks would have been a solid pickup as well. Yeah. Just a really good draft at the fact that we have enough those guys just still lying on the board.
Yeah, I mean this was one of those where this is one of those drafts where prime version is a very good key phrase to keep in mind, because some of these guys might not be killing it at this moment, but the prime version of some of these dudes, they gave us the Michael Carter Williams 1 year Palooza type of deal. That version of them would be pretty insane on some of these basketball teams. So I think our drafts were pretty dope.
I think it was pretty dope as well. All right, Jay, to go through these lineups, I'm going to throw it over to you first. Who do you have as your kind of your 2017 draft team?
All right, so my 2017 NBA draft squad is going to be Lonzo Ball at the 1, De'Aaron Fox at the 2, Jason Tatum at the 3, Lauri Markkanen at the 4, and then Jared Allen at the 5.
Very, very good lineup there. I don't think anyone can play with that lineup. But let's see how mine stacks up. At the 1, I got Derek White. At the 2, I got Spider Mitchell. At the 3, give me OG Anunoby. At the 4, give me John Collins. And at the 5, give me Bam Adebayo.
That team can really guard, bro. That team can really guard.
I mean, like I said, John Collins prime version. This guy can move on the perimeter. He's athletic as hell. Can hit the corner 3. Look, this is some pretty damn good players here, and I think this team is very, very switchable as well. How do you feel about your team?
I mean, I like the squad. Obviously, I think there's 4-out spacing here. I like what prime version Jared Allen can be because I actually think that although Jared Allen made an all-star team with the Brooklyn Nets, I actually think this year is the version of Jared Allen I would like. Specifically, if I had to pick like really deep in the weeds, that Jared Allen we got to see why Evan Mobley was injured was kind of crazy. He was kind of elite.
Right.
He was showing off
100%.
passing chops. They were able to throw the ball down to him a little bit. Like Jared Allen this year with Evan Mobley off the floor was like low key kind of elite. So like I like some of the things that he could potentially do. Laurie Market as a 3-4 switchable guy. Like love that. Jason Tatum, same thing, can play between the 3 and the 4. De'Aaron Fox is like the shooting guard. So like basically you're just green lighting him to score. Crazy. And then we know what Lonzo Ball can do as a 3-point shooter and as a guy on like as a perimeter defender. At least what we saw with the Chicago Bulls version of him, like he could be like a really lethal defender. And if you have Jason Tatum as another perimeter defender next to him and Jared Allen as the back end guy at the rim, like the Bulls could never, bro. Like the Bulls could never like optimize his defense in a way that this team does. And the Bulls had like a top 5 defense when he was healthy. Like, so this team defensively would actually be kind of dope.
100%. But yeah, these are some 2 really good drafted teams. Let us know down below who has the better team between these 2, man. Is it my team or is it Jay's team? It's a good matchup. Probably one of the best matchups we've had so far in the series. But let us know what you have, who you have winning down below. Jay, it's time for the final segment of the show, and it's time for the NBA quiz. And today, Jay, I had to do something Boston Celtics related. Yeah. So we've done this style of draft before, and we're gonna bring it back today. We're gonna be going in reverse chronological order. Jay has 3 strikes today, and he's gonna try and name the top Boston Celtics with the highest win shares per season. So, starting from 2023-2024, who was the guy with the top win shares? And we're gonna go through each year down to see how far Jay could go back.
Wait, what? Like
win shares?
Win shares? Can like for the audience, can you like define what win shares is? I'm saying for the audience, but I'm also speaking for myself a little bit. I'm gonna be honest.
Win shares is basically like how much like it's basically like a stat like I think it was developed by John Hollinger, where it was like a stat where actually no, you know what? I just because win shares might be kind of like confusing to kind of like wrap your head around. I might just do this one because I had 2 prepared, but let's name the highest points per game score every single year of the Boston Celtics in reverse chronological order.
Okay, PPG I can do. PPG is not too crazy. Win shares, I'm not hating on win shares, but I'm still kind of wrapping my head around what win shares even means because I've seen like the Mike Korzimba version of how that stat does and does not explain stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I got you. It's okay. But yeah, we're gonna do points per game. We're gonna start in 2023-2024. Jay's gonna have a guess at each year. You have 3 strikes. Let's see how far back you can go for the Boston Celtics. Starting in 2023-2024, who was the scoring leader for the Celtics?
So this was Jason Tatum.
Jason Tatum for this year, correct.
He was the leader last year too, though, right?
Jason Tatum was the leader last year, correct.
Was he the leader the year before that too?
He was the leader the year before, correct.
Okay, what year are we on?
So you went through the first 3 years, so we're in 2020, 2021.
Okay, wait a minute. This is where things might get a little tricky, maybe. Wait, is this just Jason Tatum again?
Jason Tatum again.
Okay, I'm trying not to let myself get tricked up.
All right, 2019, 2020.
Oh, okay. 2019, 2020. This is Kyrie Irving time, I think. Or maybe this is the year after. Huh. Wow. I'm very scared because I've just been saying Jason Tatum this whole time, and I just don't know if that's just the answer to everything, because I feel like it could be. This is 2019, 2020.
Yes, that is 2019, 2020.
Fuck it, I get 3 strikes. Is this just Jason Tatum again?
It is Jason Tatum again.
Okay, I'm about to say I get 3 strikes, so it's like, I mean.
Okay. So now we're in 2018, 2019 Celtics. Who do you got?
Is Kyrie there yet? No, I think this is Kimba, no? I think this is Kimba. Wow, that Kyrie team is way further back than I think I'm giving it credit here. Hold on. This is just Jason Tatum again, isn't it?
It is not.
It's not?
It is not Jason Tatum for this year. Such a first strike.
Wait, what year is this?
2018, 2019.
What the heck? Wait, maybe I'm tripping. Maybe this is Kyrie.
So is that your guess, Kyrie Irving?
I think so.
Kyrie Irving is the correct answer here for 2018, 2019.
What the heck? Okay.
So 2017, 2018 now.
Okay. 2017, 2018. So how long was Kyrie there? That's a real question by itself. How long was Kyrie there? Wait, which year is this again?
2017, 2018.
2017, 2018. Is this Kyrie again, no?
It is Kyrie Irving again for this year.
I was going to say he was there for a minute, but like it wasn't great.
Yeah.
Okay, so
now we're on 2016, 2017.
Okay, I think we're about to slowly but surely start getting into my Duffy a little bit. I'm not 1,000% sure. I'm gonna take the glasses off so I can like think real quick. 2016, 2017. That's where we're at?
Yes, 2016, 2017.
This is like the Isaiah Thomas MVP hype year. So I'm gonna say Isaiah Thomas.
Isaiah Thomas is correct.
Okay, cool. This is Loki Cooks, not gonna lie. Who was next?
So 2015, 2016.
Damn. Oh, wait, is this? I think this is still IT's team. So I'm gonna say Isaiah Thomas again.
It is Isaiah Thomas.
Okay, cool. I think that's the last time I'm gonna guess him. I think I might be wrong.
2014, 2015.
2014 is a nasty year.
You're not lying. They still made the playoffs, though. They still made the playoffs this year.
Yeah, of course, right? Of course. Yeah. Wait, no. I'm gonna guess IT one more time.
Isaiah Thomas is correct.
I think this is genuinely the end of it, though.
We are now into 2013, 2014.
Good gracious, this is nasty. Who is even on this team, bro? Wait, what year is this?
2013, 2014.
Oh my God, this was the year that like Jarrett Sullinger was drafted, no?
He might have, it's either this season or the season before this, but yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the two. I know he wasn't there that long, but oh my God, I only remember that because he went to Ohio State, and that was one of those years where I was like really watching Big Ten basketball. Totally different aside, doesn't matter. Is this Avery Bradley?
And that is your second strike, Jay.
That hurts. That hurts me. I can't. I gotta get one. I gotta get to 2010 at least. I gotta get to 2010. I have to. There were too many Jason Tatum guesses, too many Kyries, too many ITs. Like I need to like get some diversity. It's not Avery Bradley.
It's not Avery Bradley.
This is super nasty. Is this Jeff Green?
It is Jeff Green.
Yes, this was the Uncle Jeff. This was the Uncle Jeff year. This is the Uncle Jeff year. Yes, sir.
Jeff Green leading the Celtics 17 points per game.
yucky, but hey.
Yucky 25-win season for the Boston Celtics. But
Oh,
now
God.
we are in 2012, 2013.
2012, 2013. This is Pierce and KG's last year on Brooklyn. I mean, before Brooklyn, I believe. I'm gonna say this is Paul Pierce.
Dang.
Okay, I like that. There was hesitancy there, which makes me feel like it wasn't as good of a guess as I think it is, or it means that we're about to go on a Paul Pierce streak. It means one of two things. I'm gonna lean on the concept that this is Paul Pierce again.
Dang.
Okay. So we're kind of cooking. So we're at 2010 now.
2010, 2011.
Yeah, we're at 2010, 2011. I feel like this guess is still a lot closer because this is like prime big three level stuff going on here. But I still think Paul Pierce is the main guy. So I'm gonna say, man, people are sleeping on Paul Pierce. I'm gonna guess that Paul Pierce is the guy again.
It is Paul Pierce.
Okay.
2009, 2010.
And now I think we're getting into uncharted waters a little bit. But this is still prime big three. But I think the numbers are going to still be close because I think this was one of those years where like Ray Allen and Paul Pierce were like oddly close. But I just don't see a world where anybody besides Paul Pierce led this team in scoring. So I think I'm just going to say Paul Pierce again.
Paul Pierce is the correct answer.
What year are we on? Because I feel as though there comes a point where Paul Pierce can't be the answer, and that's where things shift.
0809 now.
This has to be Paul Pierce. I think this year specifically has to be Paul Pierce.
0809 is Paul Pierce. And Jay, I'm going to tell you right now, this is the closest out of all of the Paul Pierce years so far because he averaged like 19.6 points per game. KG averaged 19.
Wow. Okay, no pressure. That means we're getting very close to the part where I'm about to start getting stuff wrong.
So we're now in 07, 08 now, I think? Or is it?
I think it's 07, 08.
Yeah, I think this is like. No, wait.
No, I think we might be on
0607.
0607.
607.
Yeah, because I think, yeah. Okay. What the heck does this team look like at this point? I know Pierce is the only one here by this point. Damn it, I think it's just Paul Pierce again.
It is Paul Pierce at this one. Yep.
I feel like when this inflection point happens, I am going to get it so wrong. And I hate that my third strike is going to be the inflection point.
So, yeah, we are now in 0506.
0506. Jesus freaking Christ. I can't remember when Paul Pierce was drafted, but I want to say that he was still averaging like a cool 25 by this point.
So is that your guess, Paul Pierce?
Yeah.
Dang.
Okay.
0405.
If all of these guys weren't like complete, like literally just like streaking, I think I would be like way worse at this game. But because they're like years and years of these guys being like in a row, I'm like surviving here.
So now we're in, I believe, 0405. 0405. Yeah.
I literally just think it's Paul again, though.
Paul Pierce is the correct answer.
I think I should just keep guessing him until I just run out to my last strike. I think that's the point I'm getting to.
0304.
I know it was Paul. That team was cheeks. It
is Paul Pierce. 0304. 0203.
0203. Good God. I'm going to get this one wrong. Well, maybe I'm not. This was when Antoine Walker and Paul Pierce were killing, but it was just them. But I think Antoine Walker averaged like 20 PPG that year. I still think Paul Pierce was probably better. I'm just gonna take Paul again.
It is Paul Pierce in 0203.
Yo,
01,
yo,
02.
yo. First of all, I don't know if this is just TV's way of putting like some kind of PSA out for like Paul Pierce respect, but
Oh, I
like,
know people for Paul Pierce respect. No, I just, but I'm not the one to go to. But he was a killer in Boston for many years.
I'm just saying because I think. Yeah, I'm still running dry, but I think this is Paul Pierce again. This is another one of those Paul Pierce, Antoine Walker years, but I think I'm gonna go with Paul Pierce again.
In 0102, it was Paul Pierce. Yes, it was.
Okay.
2000, 2001.
Hey Twan, how long were y'all rocking before like y'all not the guys anymore? Because these two kind of were like this for like a hot little minute. But I think this is still a Paul Pierce, Antoine Walker team. I think. But did Twan outscore him this year? You have not failed me so far during this podcast. I'm gonna guess Paul Pierce one more time.
It is Paul Pierce and 2000, 2001. 25 points per game for Paul Pierce, 23 points per game for Antoine Walker,
Well,
and
okay.
the rest of the team was doo-doo.
Well, I had a reason to sweat clearly because that was like way closer in PPG than I thought it would be.
Jay is now in the year 1999-2000.
Oh my god. Have you ever just looked at a Scantron and been like, yeah, I've circled the same bubble too many times. This is bro.
It can't be D 5 times in a row, can it?
You know what I mean? Like this is kind of sketchy. Like, how many Paul Pierce, Antoine Walker years am I like gonna remember? I know this year is one of them though, but then the question is, I'm willing to lose with this guess, but I'm gonna go off. I'm gonna go off palette. I'm gonna actually say that I think Antoine Walker led this team in scoring at least once. He had to, bro. They were both killing for a while.
And you are correct, Antoine
Okay.
Walker in 99-2000.
Jesus
Just to tell you
Christ.
how close it was, 20.5 Antoine Walker, 19.5 Paul Pierce. All right, 1998, 1999.
I'm gonna say Tuan again.
Antoine Walker, correct answer.
I have to tell the truth. I don't remember whether or not Pierce was on this team by this point. I just know that I'm just saying that I think Antoine Walker was killing for a good amount of time.
Okay.
He is very underrated as a player.
Okay. Yeah, no, for 100%. 97-98 though.
I think that's Tuan again.
Antoine Walker's the correct answer.
Now the problem is gonna be that I'm gonna run out of guys after Antoine's done because like I remember Antoine killing. I just don't remember how long he played next to Paul Pierce.
Okay, we're 96-97.
Is this rookie Tuan? I don't know. Antoine Walker? Question mark answer?
Ding.
Huh.
The relief on your face.
TV, you gotta understand. If I had 2 strikes, this podcast would be like even longer considering where we're at right now. So the fact that I'm at this point is like super surprising. But I'm gonna get somebody wrong because like after the Antoine Walker years, I'm screwed.
94, 95, 96.
95.
Yes.
All right. This is where I lose, by the way. So audio listeners, prepare to see the end card soon. There's no way.
Good job for getting all the way back to 95, 96.
Yeah, there's no way. Because who the is even on this team? Celtics fans, give me my respect. This is going to be the wrong answer, but I'm telling you right now, this man averaged double digits for like at least 2 years and had to have led the team, had to have been damn near the leader in scoring one of these years that I guess Antoine Walker. I'm losing here. I'm just telling everybody this now. My answer is David Wesley.
It is the incorrect answer.
Oh, I knew it.
He was.
I knew it.
The way you're talking about it, I thought you were gonna get it. David Wesley, honestly, the 2 years like that you said Antoine Walker, like before this,
Uh-huh.
he was the second leading scorer. David
See,
Wesley was
this is
right
what I'm
there.
come on, man. Like I'm
Yeah,
here. Come on. Like I'm trying to tell y'all, bro. Like I know my lore a little bit. I know my
yeah.
lore a little bit. It's just like, okay, so who was the leader? Who was the leader scorer?
This guy was a freaking EuroLeague legend, and he kind of only played a couple years here in the NBA.
Who?
Dino Raja.
Oh, I wouldn't have got that. I'm not gonna lie. I wouldn't have got. I remember the
Dino
name. I just
Dino
don't think I would have
Raja.
associated him with like leading scorer on the Celtics.
It's crazy. He averaged like 19.8 points per game that year, like in for the Celtics. So shout out to freaking Dino, bro.
Oh, let me put some more respect on my boy name then. My fault.
Yeah,
I was
95.
not familiar with your game, my boy. Jesus Christ, what the heck?
Yes. So he was the leading scorer then. If you got Dino Rogers somehow, some way, you weren't going to get the next one after this because he played like 2 seasons on the Celtics, and he is definitely not known as a Boston Celtic.
Who was the next one?
Dominique Wilkins.
Oh yeah. Okay, I would have 1994 season?
94, 95, yeah.
Oh, oh yeah. Yeah. No. I would have I think no, because I remember him on the Celtics, but would I remember him as like the best player? Nah.
Nah,
Nah, I can't give
nah,
myself that much credit.
that's crazy.
I'll take as far as I got. I'll take as far as I got. And I
You
think
went
David
back like
Wesley was
30
not terrible.
years. You went back almost 30 years. So
Cool.
congrats to you, Jay. That was a very good run. And
Ooh.
yeah, great way to. I mean, this episode was a lot about how the Celtics won, and we went through like 28 years of the Boston Celtics.
Hey man, let me tell you this. All I'm saying is with that level of consistency that it seemed like the Celtics had, where it had like their leading score was like the leading score for like at least a cool 3 years each time. There have been some pretty damn good generations of Boston Celtics basketball. I think we obviously know that with the fact that they hung up banner number freaking 18.
Yeah,
But like when guys come to the Celtics and they're good, it seems like they just stay good.
they are.
Cause
Yeah,
damn.
for sure, 100%. But yeah, that's the quiz for today. Let us know down below if you guys what other quizzes you want us to see. But we've reached another end of another fantastic episode. Thank you guys for watching or listening. Jay, recovering from that quiz. So what do you have to tell these beautiful people before we sign out?
I have to apologize for my audio listeners. That quiz went a lot longer than most of our quizzes go. But I mean, hopefully you guys respect the knowledge a little bit or whatever.
Yeah.
If anything, maybe you don't respect the actual picks because it was like Jason Tatum 8 times in a row or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, can you respect the David Wesley? Like, you know what I mean?
Amen.
Like,
Amen. No, I
come
respect
on.
it. Honestly, I thought you were gonna like get tripped up at one of the Paul Pierce years at the end there. But the fact that you knew to switch between Paul Pierce and Antoine, I respect it. I respect it.
But I mean, all of that aside, like obviously TV, shout out to you for like helping me and really lock in this year in terms of us doing this podcast together. TV has so many ideas off camera that like really helped us lock in, not just content wise, but just in terms of like just the way we wanted to run the podcast this year, the different kind of things that we touched on. This was amazing. Was an amazing first full season of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, the off season is a part of that. So job not finished, as Kobe once said. But like we're really primed for a really strong off season. I feel like I've been hyping up the the routine jumper page for the longest, and although we've been shouting it out on the podcast, shout out to TV for keeping it alive despite the fact that I haven't done what I need to do. But I think that the off season has just now become this like really perfect place for me to start fresh. So I'm looking forward to doing that both here on this podcast and with that page. Man, it's been one crazy season. I mean, it's been one really insane season. And that goes back to what I said during the pod of like, it's crazy to know that like this season was nuts and next year really has the potential to somehow be crazier than this one. Like, that's insane to think about.
100%. And like I mentioned, man, the daily uploads still coming. The NBA draft is upcoming, man. Be on the lookout for some WNBA content coming up this summer as
Come
well.
on, man.
Not only WNBA content, but I'm gonna tell you right now, we might have some WNBA dedicated episodes for you on the come up. Maybe as early as this week. So be on the lookout for that as well. We have that going on. We have NBA free agency. And then with us in the Evergreen content, we're gonna have content for you all summer long.
Our favorite kind of episodes.
The best type of episodes. Of course, we're gonna do some more season review as we go along. Of course, we're gonna do some season previews later on. But even though there's no basketball, you all know that you're still gonna be able to check out the Hit Your Free Throws pod for the best content every single day. So yeah, thank you guys for watching for this one. Remember to show love on our individual pages: TV on Basketball, Knockdown J, Routine Jumper down below, the TikTok, the Instagram, YouTube podcast listeners. We all appreciate all of you guys for checking us out every single day. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a fantastic day. This is TV. This is Jay. We're signing out. Peace.